Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heart Conversation. Today, I have Narelle Warcon from Australia here in our studio, and just want to have a conversation today. And in this conversation, it really comes from our heart, how we are connecting, how are we getting to know each other, and most of all, I usually give a lot of time to my guests to talk about themselves because this is a way for me to get to know my guests a little bit more, and for you as a viewer to get to connect with our guests a little bit more than what you've seen outside. And so, welcome, Narelle. Walk on here today. If you would please say hello to everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie, for having me here. I really appreciate this time to be able to share a little bit about my life.
Perfect. And thank you for making a time to be here with me. Without further ado, let's get our conversation started. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. What inspired you? How does your childhood actually mold you in who you are today?
Okay, big questions, and thank you. My name's Narelle Warcon. I'm from Queensland, Australia, and again, I say I'm honoured to be here with Julie to be able to share a part of my story. So, back from when I was born, 1961. So yes, I'm getting on. Mum and Dad were dairy farmers, so to speak. So our ancestry is German Polish. I believe that one of the grandparents on my dad's side was born on one of the boats coming over. So they were hardworking people, God-fearing in a sense. They were, churchgoers and believe in the Almighty God, and a beautiful family, I suppose, to grow up into. Now, I felt very different from a very young age, and there was times when I sort of really, I suppose, questioned myself even as a child that why was I different? Why did I feel different? Why didn't I feel like everybody else in my family? So there was one boy and six girls. Dad wanted boys or more boys, but he got six girls. Mum and Dad have both passed away now. Bless their souls. They were both beautiful people. My eldest brother passed away at the age of 71, so there's just us six girls left. And we get on, really well and have a lot of love for each other. And we're meeting up in the next month when we go for Mimi's fundraiser, and I'll get onto that a little bit later. But yeah, dairy farming, grew up. We had to work hard from a young age. We were actually born near the ocean, and walking to school was like a 5-mile walk. And Mum sent me off to school at 4 years old, which you could back then. And it was a big day. So we had a nasty principal in a little school. And then Mum and Dad decided to go back to dairy farming because that's what they knew best. So, going back to a what you would call a very small town country environment didn't necessarily mean that the children were going to be as friendly as what they say they are. So there was a lot of bullying. My younger sister and myself were basically in primary school. Some of the other ones had, gone off. A couple had married, and one was working on the farm with my dad. And my sister up from me was in high school. So my youngest sister wasn't at school yet. But that bullying sort of, I suppose it toughens you up a little bit, but it also pulls you down to a place where you don't think you're good enough, where you're never going to be like those children, because they seem to have everything. But you realize as you get a little bit older, that isn't true, and that they're actually probably suffering something worse than what you're going through, because they're the bullies. So coming into teenage years, I was basically a rebellious child. I didn't realize at that time why I was different. I still had this thing of, sort of needing outward validation. I hung around the wrong crowds. I didn't, even though I went to church every Sunday because that's what was expected of us, it wasn't it wasn't something I suppose I had my heart in, and that is really important. If you're going to love the Lord, then you need to have your heart in that. But as a child, you're just forced to go to church every Sunday because that's what's expected. So rebellious, very rebellious, got married at the age of 17 and a half, and to a priest's son. And believe it or not, maybe that was me just trying to reel myself back. But yeah, I went through some not so good times with him. He drank a lot, and there was times when he abused me, and they were just times. I didn't have any children to him. So by the age of 21, 6 weeks before I turned 21, I actually left my husband, and here I was only 21, so I was still young. I sort of went a little bit on the wayside again, I think, along the lines, and when I get into this a little bit later, is that outward validation, that searching for love in all the wrong places, trying to figure out where I fit in to a society that I didn't feel I belonged. So it was difficult times. Through those times, felt very alone many times, even though I have like a big family and things like that. My sisters were always there. I always kept a lot inside because I didn't realize I didn't really want to share with them, because I think if any of the audience and listeners know that sometimes talking to family and friends is not necessarily where you want to take that information. Sometimes we need help along the way, whether it's from a specialist, a social worker, psychologist. Don't go to psychiatrists. Those people are those people are weird all by themselves, which I found out. You go ahead, Julie. Ask any questions you want to know.
Yeah, continue your thoughts, and then I'll jump in when I know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so, married, divorced, no children, still feeling that I was different and things like that. So, I moved, I met a man when I was 23 or 22, and we had a short relationship, but in saying that, we also moved in together. I fell pregnant to this man after having many surgeries when I was younger, 18 and 19. I was told that I was born with half a uterus. I had extensive surgery to remove 8 cysts of my right tube, which is the only one I have. Told that it was like opening a dead person. I was very infected inside, so they fed antibiotics into the wound. They sewed me up, and they told me I only had 5% chance of falling pregnant. I have been very blessed in my life with 3 children, and I'll get to them soon. So I met this guy, not really knowing, and also discussing with him the fact that, I had very small chance of falling pregnant. Doctors had warned me against using any pill or anything like that because it wasn't good for my body. So, but the Lord has different ideas, and I fell pregnant. And because I had half a uterus, they didn't know how far that would go, how far I would go in the pregnancy. And I loved being pregnant. I was so excited. It didn't matter about the other half, because he ended up leaving me when I was 3 months pregnant and going back to an old girlfriend. Sometimes life has a way of just giving you what you need at the time. And that unconditional love which children bring into your life is really, truly amazing and a blessing. So my son was born 13 weeks early. He weighed 1 pound 12. He dropped to 1 pound 8, and his percentage to survive was not good. They thought he would die the first night. He had heart surgery at 8 days old. He had a collapsed lung. He had 5 blood transfusions. He had severely turned feet. He was in a humidicrib for 4 weeks. He was not able to. He was not able to breathe by himself, so he was on a ventilator for 9 weeks. He was in ICU, intensive care unit over here for many months, and there was times when he stopped breathing during the night. He was on what they call an apnea mat, which stimulates an alarm to go off to say that they've stopped breathing. It was very intense times. I was all by myself because I had to be rushed to the main city in Queensland, which is Brisbane, from my hometown.
How old were you? How old were you this time?
I was 23.
Wow.
So back of the ambulance down to the hospital, you know, had this baby preemie. It was, I tell you that I never became so closer to the Lord than what I did then, because the prayer was really important for me to keep my strength up, because I didn't have anybody right there around me. My family were a couple of hours away and busy, you know, with work and stuff like that. My sister, just younger than me, had come down with me in the ambulance. They sent her home after a couple of days, saying that it was just a false labour, but it wasn't. And as soon as she got on the bus, I came into labour and had a baby. You know, so it's very frightening because I had him naturally. You know, they say, oh, little babies must just come out easily, but they don't, because they're not big enough to help with the pushing. So I was cut, and, you know, he was delivered and rushed off straight away into the preemie nursery. I didn't even get to see him. It was a scary situation in the sense that he was too early. 13 weeks early.
Wow.
They little babies aren't really ready to come out and face this big world. Their lungs aren't ready. Their lungs aren't mature. You know, everything's not there. But he had little bits of blonde hair, and he had, the only thing he was missing was the cartilage in his ears, which did eventually come in. But yeah, like I said, very scary.
It's a miracle baby.
He is my miracle, and I can talk about him and still get emotional. And he just turned 40, so 40 years ago is a long time ago. And he was born at 27 weeks. Their saving of a preemie baby in weeks was 25 weeks. That's when they still had to try and save them. Now it's a little bit differently because they have different equipment. So yeah, I sat in hospital for over 4.5 months before he was ready to come home at 6 pounds back then. Just going up to the hospital, I moved down there and lived with an auntie and uncle who were they were older people, but they were there for doing my washing and cooking for me, so I didn't have to think about those things because I spent every day at the hospital.
How did you go through all this? I mean, at 23 years old, and you had to go through this entire thing, witnessing your son was born premature, going through this whole process. What kind of mental strength that you have at that time? I think at that time, for someone who going through that, they might not have that strength mentally and clarity to go through this.
I think most people would have probably support around them, and I'm not saying I didn't. Mum and Dad were back in, you know, the hometown, and I rang her every night just to say what was happening. My dad was a very quiet man, and I knew that Mum was passing on messages to all the family. I think in this situation, you do what you can, and you do what just comes naturally. And as a mum or new mum, it doesn't matter what age you are, you fight for your child and survival, and you forget about yourself in a sense, if you know what I mean, because you're just there giving all your strength. Like when he's in the humidity crib, they'd open up the porch, you'd have to clean every part of your body and wear special stuff, and I'd put my hands in just to stroke him. I wanted to be there for him, to let him know he wasn't alone. And that does take a lot of strength, because you're looking at this baby who's not looking like a baby. You know, he was about 12 inches long, which is about half the size of a normal baby, and his little arms and his little legs, and you know, his little head as they turned him, or they'd pick him up. Once they the nurses said to me, do you want to hold him? Because I'd never held him, so I opened up the humidity crib ports, put my hands in, and on the other side, because they have ports both sides to work on them, they lifted him up and put him in my two hands together. And it was like, the tears are going to fall, because it's the first time I've actually held my child in a humidity crib. And you could, this might sound ridiculous, but you could have just flicked him over your shoulder because he's that light, the heart surgery was just, you can't explain it unless you've been there, when you have this little person that's your son, who's so little, and they put him on this little operating table with lights, and you're praying the whole time as he goes into surgery, because they went in through his back, because when preemie babies are born, sometimes this tube to the heart doesn't close off as it would full term. So they had to go in, as I said, 1 pound 8, and this little tiny body, and they had to go in through his back. So it's his little war wound on his back, which has grown with him over time, obviously. As he grew up, the scar grew as well. But yeah, very, very trying times. And like I said, I became very close to the Lord and just praying constantly, because not just that I needed it, but he needed it to survive.
We know how prayers work, how it worked in our own community of ONPASSIVE. We know how it works. So I'm glad that you have God with you back then. So, so is he the oldest? He's the oldest.
He was my firstborn. I didn't think I'd have any more after that. I ended up remarrying, and my husband that I married was Aboriginal South Sea. So I had two beautiful daughters to him, and one is 30 and one is nearly 25. So I have quite a big gap between the children. Beautiful girls. They lost their dad just a couple of years ago, massive heart attack. And it was very sad, because my youngest found her dad's body in the bathroom where he had passed away. So, you go through different emotions in life, and sometimes they're much, much harder than what you think you deserve. But just going back to them, my eldest daughter, my son was almost 10 when I fell pregnant with her. She was born 9 weeks early and weighed 2.14 pounds. But because of the advancement in technology and things like that, with humidity cribs, with the way, because they give you, when they know that you're coming into maybe premature labor, they give you what they call steroid needles, which helps the lungs of the premature baby inside of you. They're very, very painful, and it's quite a thick substance, and it is very painful for you to have. And I had 4 with her. I only ever had 1 with my son, because he just came so quick. So she was 2.14 pounds, 9 weeks early. She was in hospital for 7 weeks. But it was very difficult. My marriage broke up. I was running my own business. I had gone and, I'm a florist by trade. So here I was running my own bricks and mortar florist, which is 6-7 days a week, basically. And you never stop when you're a business owner. So I had to try and get my family in to help run my business, because again, I was sent to Brisbane prior to having my daughter. So it was difficult times. And at one stage, they even bought some artificial flowers down so that I could do this wedding bouquet, which was a huge wedding. I had to ask permission from the hospital to do it, but that's what happened. So marriage broke up. We were separated for quite some time. There was a time when I said, let's put our differences aside for the children's sake. Yolanda, my eldest daughter, needed to, she wanted to know who her dad was and stuff like that. So we did. And then daughter number 2, child number 3 was born. So I always laugh, because it's like, oh, you're so funny, God, because, they tell me I only have 5% chance of falling pregnant. And now I'm my 3rd child. And it's like, She was my heavy baby. She went the longest. She was 3 weeks early. She weighed 5 pound 13, and didn't really require anything much except putting on some
Yeah.
weight. So um, very interesting. You just, like I said, you get the strength from somewhere, and from me, it's from God.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow, what
hard
a journey
times.
you have. Is that why you have blonde roots? Is that your whole story that you shared today?
The
That
one,
kind of
yeah.
showing you the fact that you are resilient and you have this strength in
Well,
you.
I think a lot of people over here, and there is a connotation towards why it's called that.
Mhm.
Firstly, I am blonde, and secondly, because around the world it might be known, but in Australia, blondes are
Mhm.
classed as dumb. And even though
Mhm.
that's a negative, it really was
Mhm.
about my life journey, having chosen and made the decisions that I made with only what I knew at the
Mhm.
time. Remember, we can all look back in hindsight and say, well, oh, she should have done this, or I could have done this, or whatever. So you're only going on what you're actually, what your life is about, what you feel, your experiences at that time. So Blonde Roots is my book. I am a published author. You can find my book on Amazon, or write to me and I can do a signed copy from Australia, and we work out the postage. My book wasn't written to be a bestseller. My book was written to bring hope to somebody else. Because if I can take that story back a bit, Julie, when I was in my 40s, I found out that I had been sexually abused as a
Mhm.
2-year-old girl. This is part of my story, part of my book. At the age of 10, I was again sexually abused. And back then it was all hush hush, push it under the carpet. Now, at 2 years old, I don't remember that. Okay. But remember, I said that
Mhm.
I felt
Mhm.
different right from the beginning. Well, at the age of 43, I think it was, I found out from my three older sisters that they had been sexually abused, and they
Mhm.
opened up about that. And I had been going to counselling because I had been through domestic violence on a number of occasions, and I was seeking help because I was not coping very well at all. And it was the counsellor that said to me, Narelle, with everything that you've shared, it seems that something really traumatic has happened to you about the age of 2 or 3. Now, when my sisters came out about this, I put two and two together, let's say, and realized that I had actually been abused because of the way my life was, the choices I had made, the decisions I made, that outward validating all the time, the looking for love in all the wrong places, absolutely teamed up with that. So, and again at 10, I do remember 10. At the age of 14, I was taken out bush by 3 men and raped by 2 of them, and or left for dead. um, and yeah, so life happens, and sometimes it's okay to ask why. It's okay to feel sorry for yourself occasionally. There's so many positive things out there um, to go towards, to live for. However, it's okay. A lot of people get caught up in that. Just leave that. Don't worry about it. It's happened in the past. Keep moving. Get on with it. But unless you identify what you've gone through, and it's okay to feel sadness, you can't move forward with positivity until you've dealt with that. Okay? Until you've lived or experienced or had professional help to help you move through those areas in your
Because when
life.
it happened to you at such a young age, I mean, two is one thing, but at 10, you have the intelligence already, and it still happened. It happened to you. It changed the whole course of your life. It changed who you are and changed the way you think of yourself. But for me, I feel that there's so many people around the world that going through such, and when they watch this, they will feel connected with you. They feel, heal. I mean, we all heal together, right? When we are connecting with each other. I mean, some of us are going through the same thing. That's where we're healing together. But let's talk a little bit about your book. What triggered you to say you want to write about your experience, and how long did it take you to complete the book, and how difficult for you to actually relive that experience again?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. Great question, because the thought of having, writing a book. I mean, I went to school. I didn't like school. I hated it, to tell you the truth. I just wanted to get out there and work. I failed English. I only passed two subjects, maths and what they call business principles, like bookwork type thing. So the thought of me actually writing a book as somebody who had failed English was really quite a bit of a blow, because I thought, well, how's this going to happen? It was only that I had a couple of friends that said, you need to write your book. Your story is so big. Okay, you have to thought about it. And then I started to go through the process, writing. If anybody knows or has written a book, or knows of anybody who has written a book, particularly an autobiography, you have to go back and relive those parts in your life, because you can't write emotionally or be raw and real, which my book is very raw and real. You can't write from a place of something you've forgotten about, in a sense, you know what I mean? Or pushed to the side. So it was the best thing I ever did, because what it did was release all the years of pain and hurt into that book, into my story, that I'd been holding on to the point that I actually felt a big hole in my stomach where I had been holding it. And I literally became a different person. I didn't even know who I was anymore, because that
Right.
writing my book and releasing changed me so much. So I actually had to learn to be me again, without all the needs of wanting to feel loved, or going into bad relationships, or all of those things, which sort of, took me through those things. So
Wow. Was it difficult for you to relive your experience? Or was it
I say to people, it took about 6 months to write it, from the 2 year
yeah.
inception of it, thought, and then writing it. It took me about 6 months. And there were many days where I was fetal position, crying on the bed, because remember that you're writing it, but then you have to release it, and then you have to deal with what comes after that, which is the emotions. So many times, many days, writing, releasing, crying on the bed. Um, in my book, there's one stage in my book I say, I cried for that. I cried for that two-year-old girl. I cried for that 10-year-old girl. I cried for those things that happened in my life, because some of those things were out of my control. And you talk about, like, I have a loving family, but in those days, my dad was born in 1918 and my mum was born in 1926. In those days, they were told to shut up, don't say anything. And I wondered, because it was a family member that did this to my elder sisters and myself, and it wasn't our dad. Our dad was beautiful, but it was a family member. And the thing is, you wonder, forgiveness comes in many different ways, and I was able to forgive this person, because you don't know what they've gone through. Okay, what did he suffer from at the hand of, that may have happened to him, that he thought it was fine to do this to us?
Yeah.
So you've got to ask that question, as hard as what it is. And forgiveness is not easy, but it's the only way that you can move forward, particularly after sexual, physical, mental abuse, in those areas. So
Yeah. When you forgive someone, it's not necessarily that you forgive that person or that individual. You actually forgive yourself. You actually allowing yourself to move forward, and allowing yourself to accept the fact that, whatever happened, that's happened.
mm,
Whatever that the stories that I made in my mind, um, it's just a story. I got to tell you this one story. I was in a group of, I guess, education together, when we creating a space where we allowing people to feel safe and share their story. There's this one individual who, I think she was 75 years old, and something was happened, something that she had done in her past that was terrible, but
mm,
it happened, right? She carried that guilt in her for 50 years.
Yeah.
And when we were in the group together, we feel safe about it. We have a chance to actually tell the story. That evening, when she told her story, it was so light seeing on her face. It feels like that 50 year is peeling
Mhm.
off her face. And you know what happened? Within that 50 years, she never allowed herself to be loved or to love again.
Yeah.
Then we see each other again a week later, and she was falling in love with this very nice gentleman. And the way how we look at her, she was 25 years, she looks 25 years
Yeah.
younger than her age.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so sometimes things happen in our life, we just need to forgive ourselves,
Yes.
because if we live with it, we still continue to live with it.
Yeah.
And when we live with it, we made stories in our mind that's disabled us to moving forward.
Yeah, and
So
you can only do with what you can do at that time. You can only
exactly.
make the decisions with your knowledge at the time, with your wisdom at that time. And if you don't have perhaps support around you or uplifting, then you're doing this by yourself. Now, you just
Mhm.
shared that story, and I will share just one quickly with you. I used to go to a women's network business function every week down in Brisbane, and there were amazing different women and speakers and stuff like that. They did allow men to come in as well. Beautiful place. Anyway, we used to have lunch afterwards, and I was sitting there, and because I have dealt with my past, released my past, I'm able to talk about it without too much emotion or attachment, I call it, because I believe that if I had a tail, that past life of mine was like a tail and it's been cut off, so it's no longer attached to me. But anyway, I was
Mhm.
speaking just over lunch, and this lady said, started to cry on the other side of the table. And I thought, so I popped up because I know that, or I realized, I suppose, that some people aren't where I am in
Mhm.
my journey through letting go and all that sort of stuff. So I got up, I went round to the other side of the table, I put just my hand on her leg, and I said, it's okay. And she said, Narelle, I was raped around the same age and I've never told anybody. And this would have been a lady in her 50s, right? And she said, I've never told anybody. And I said, it's okay, because you have told somebody now. So you can,
Mhm.
that pressure inside of you, that anxiety, that guilt has now been released. Now you can grow from that. Because all it takes, if people could only understand that all it takes is releasing, instead of being hushed all the time, instead of it pushed under the carpet. This is why we do these things, because it allows people to be who they are. It allows people to share some of their life, and you don't have to go in depth like I am. It's just that I've dealt with that. But if they can resonate with another person that's got, oh my goodness, that person went through this or that person went through that, they can eventually, work through that. Releasing my book, telling my story was a big deal. It's still, the thing is, it's still prevalent today because domestic violence is still happening. You know,
Absolutely.
it's not about awareness anymore. They spend money on awareness, saying this has happened. You see it, the advertisements on TV, but the thing is, nothing is really being done. And I'm not saying that in a shallow way, because there's many people out there, particularly women who have been through domestic violence, who are trying to get different laws changed, and stepping up there for those women who are still living in domestic violence. But over here, still many women die, every week, every year, from the hand of domestic violence. So it is important for us to stand up and say no more. We've had enough. You can't get away with that. And we need laws to abide by that, to be able to bring those people, who think that it's fine to hit a woman around or to sexually abuse her or to do whatever. We need the laws much firmer so that women feel much safer.
Yes, yes. And then, for some of us, some people out there that absolutely refuse to share their story or absolutely refuse to share that, open up with anyone. and that's what we say we have God. You can always talk to God like your best friends. Like you can feel ease about it. But let's turn the page into the years that how we are both connected, how we not only connected with each other, but so many people around the world get to connect each other. So let's talk about, how did you enter into ONPASSIVE? When
Yep.
did that happen? And what make you think that this is something? Did you take a leap of faith? Were you have a purpose of looking for something? Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie. I think, I'm a little bit different to a lot of the people that have come into ONPASSIVE in the sense of the reason why. Now, I wasn't looking for a business. I have a great niece called Mimi, and Mimi was born with cerebral palsy. Now, Mimi can't walk. She's just turned 12. Fundraised for Mimi, and her parents and her family down in Bundaberg. They fundraise every year with a big fundraiser, which is coming up in November for us this year, a little bit later this year than it has been in previous years. So what I was doing was every year I was fundraising, say a Facebook fundraiser or a GoFundMe, to help towards Mimi's treatments. Now, Mimi has treatments down in Sydney with a US company called Napa, and they help to exercise and stimulate the muscles that do. It's quite intense training. The treatments go for 3 weeks at a time in a block, and they have to go from their town down to Sydney, which is a flight back and forwards, accommodation, all the travel expenses, and it's $10,000 for 3 weeks. So you can imagine that no average person would be able to afford that, especially if you want to go 2 or 3 times a year. So they do get a little bit of government help towards Mimi's equipment, what she needs, and there are other places she does go sometimes throughout the year as well. But Mimi is 12 and she's still unable to walk by herself. She can walk with the aid of, a frame or a bicycle built particularly for her. So Mimi being 12 now, it's sort of, she's grown into such a beautiful girl. But when she starts, she was beautiful. She's just a sweet little thing that has the biggest smile. I've always connected with Mimi right from a very young age, and never too much, just that I think it was her ability to go past those problems that she had in her life to keep going. And I think that's how our hearts touched, even though she is niece. I think there was that fundraise. Anyway, I was doing a fundraiser on Facebook, and I had a friend of mine in New Zealand called Val Astle, who had been a friend of mine on Facebook, and she reached out and she said, look, Narelle, I can't help financially right now, but I must admit we did get some beautiful generations from many people all over the world as well, and continue to do that. But Val said, I want you to have a look at this because I think this might be something you're looking for. Now, I was away at the time. I watched these videos. I wanted to join. I was on a train coming home and it lost internet connection. But I listened to actually Mike Ellis. Okay, it wasn't till later on that I actually got to listen to Ash Mufareh. But Mike Ellis, the way he was speaking, I just joined straight away. Now I joined for Mimi. I sponsored Mimi with a founding position because I wanted them to have the finances available that they're going to need, because if they do ever go for surgery, I think it's only available in the US, and it costs about $100,000 plus. So I wanted her to have that availability of being able to have some funds, whether it be on our crowdfunding, Obless. Obless just stood out for me, and I could see not only helping Mimi, but helping many people all over the world. The reason I came in, once I came in, I saw that there was so much more to ONPASSIVE than just a crowdfunding platform or being able to help raise funds. With many of you, I've met so many beautiful people and spoken with so many people, and am included and accepted and acknowledged. And I tell you, one of the biggest things from me coming from the past that I've had was trust. Trust is a big thing for me. If you earn my trust, then you've got it for life. But if you falter from the trust, it's a hard one to pick up. And so I slowly sort of stepped up, because I love my country, Australia, and I love New Zealand because we're sort of like counterparts over here. And I just love Australia. I'm Australian born, and I'm a good old Aussie girl. However, I just wanted to step up and felt that there was a need for Australia and New Zealand to be seen on the ONPASSIVE arena, so to speak. And so I stood up and I started going to webinars, and I started to interact with people from all over the world, started to interact, Marty and Chris and Red and all people, even in Australia here, to try and pull them, to say, let's do this, let's get seen. A lot of that, people sort of had some difficulty in staying on board, in the sense of the time frame, I suppose. But again, that's their choices. We can't make choices for other people. So ONPASSIVE has been an absolute godsend to me. Not only has it taught me about trust again, which was a big deal, it also allowed me to be me. It allowed me to have a voice within, from my country, right? From my country's people and surrounding islands. I, was in contact with PNG, the most beautiful people on earth. And please don't take that as a thingy, but they're just so loving and they're so appreciative. That bond there alone was really beautiful, and is still really beautiful. So that's part of why I came into ONPASSIVE. If you want me to keep going, I'll just let you know what I plan to do.
Yes, we get back to it in a bit. We get to it in a bit, but if I was someone who just watched this video, right, and I hear that, you were talking about your inspirations, what you do, what you have received so far in ONPASSIVE, in terms of relationships with friends, getting trust, from other people, build that trust with other people. So what is ONPASSIVE? If you could kind of give me a short definition, what is ONPASSIVE to you?
Well, ONPASSIVE to me is, something, I suppose, when we all hear it for the first time, it's sort of a little bit hard to believe. But how I feel is that Mr. Mufareh, who is the CEO of ONPASSIVE, wanted to create a platform where everybody wins, where, those people out there like myself who joined companies, we had to buy product, you had to do auto ship, all of that sort of stuff, and you never made any money. And if you did, like me, I made $8.43 the first check that I got. The thing is, I don't want to, it sounds awful, but I don't want to talk to people to sell them stuff. I want to talk to them to be heart to heart, like you do, like it's like I do with my show and stuff like that. It's about opening up and being connected from the heart. Now, I've heard this just recently as one of the things is, if you don't believe in what you're doing, it's always going to come across as if you're false. Now, I'm not a false person, so why would I be trying to sell something to somebody if I didn't 100% believe in their platform, not the product? I still take products today from some of those companies because they are very good quality, because they help me every day. The thing is, when you've got a platform that doesn't work, everybody has, or at some time, look for something else rather than just their job, okay? Because going to work, whether you work full-time, part-time, little bit here, little bit there, it's never enough, because the cost of living goes up far greater, and we've noticed that in the last couple of years, that it's just increased so much that rental properties, food is becoming out of reach in a way. ONPASSIVE to me has an answer, because what our CEO Ash did was he put together everything on a platform, because that's his expertise. He has done this before. He has seen the 2% making those big monies and the 97, 98% missing out, and trying to do their best, because a lot of it in the MLM sector is fake it till you make it. Just do what I do. But I'm not you, Julie, and you're not me. and I'm not anybody else on this earth, and I can't do or be out there. I know can't's a bad word, but I don't want to be out there trying to be somebody that I'm not. I'm Narelle Warcon. I'm as real as it comes. Ask me anything and I'll give you a truthful answer. Simple. But in those companies, a lot of that wasn't happening. And then like me, I think I'm still using some product from 4 years ago because I bought that much. Cleaning products, not things that would expire in a sense. So Ash saw this and he said, well, what can I do? He was a tech AI, more like an IT technology genius, in the sense of he could see a platform available to everybody that had everything in one place. Now, you can crowdfund. Like me, I have quite a few tabs open each day. And if you're anybody, whether you're just a lady sitting at home or a man, whether you go to work, whether you work in an office, whether you work in a medium business, or in a massive big business, conglomerate, you're searching for something all the time to be able to save you money. Because in business, money is what the end sort of thing, because we all want to make money in business. And if you are just sitting at home, a man or lady, you too don't want to be spending all this money on applications because you need a different application for a different thing. Now, I use different ones to make my videos. You've got Facebook open, you've got LinkedIn, the social medias, you might use YouTube, all those sorts of platforms. However, it's not just about social media, not just about crowdfunding, but for big business, medium business, it's about having everything in one spot, having that ability to do O-Desk or O-Staff, and everything is there. It's about having just one login. The security of ONPASSIVE is immense. And that is the biggest thing these days, because how many of us on Facebook are getting false friend requests, right? Who have seen dirty, disgusting things that are allowed. Yet I see friends of mine that have had posts from 8 years ago taken down from Facebook because they said it didn't abide by their rules. Yet they'll let pornography or different abuses excuse me, happen, right? And when you come into like ONET and you have to verify, which is O-Verify, that person is real. That person isn't fake. That person isn't there to rip you off. That person isn't going to be. And the thing is, with O-Verify, there's no sitting behind a desk or sitting behind a computer being an absolute a-hole in the sense of being that what they call keyboard warrior, where people out there are hurting right now. People out there need love and care. I see it every day, that people are hurting and they just want to have a place where they can go and communicate, a place where they feel safe. Sorry, dry throat. So bringing it back to ONPASSIVE, and what is ONPASSIVE? It's everything you need, all in one place, all with one easy login. And that's what's coming. We have seen only a small part of what is available to us as founders. Yes, we got in as founders. The founding position has closed off. You can call it early bird affiliate. You can call it a ONPASSIVE ambassador. We are the early birds, and saw the vision of Ash Mufareh. And that to me is something I've never had put in front of me before. Excuse me. Sorry, Julie, I need to drink.
Take your time. So Narelle, knowing what you know, experiencing what you have, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to the day, as you get older, less is more in my books. I have a home, I have a roof over my head. Yes, it'd be nice to pay off the house. I don't want for anything more. I actually sponsor a gentleman in Uganda, with 8 little ones that he's looking after. I think my desire is to do the Lord's work. And I think that by giving, you receive so much more in return, and that's not a financial um, not a financial gain. To me, it's about helping those people out there who have desperately needed help. With all the wealth in the world, and even here in Australia, we are one of the wealthiest countries in the world when it comes to what we have, resources and minerals and export and all that sort of stuff. I was just reading about that the other day, that we should be the richest country in the world because of what we have available. And yet we still see people going without water, without proper housing. Over here, the rents have gone that far, that there's 30 people applying for one house, and it could be $600, $700, $800 a week. It's just disgusting, because it seems like somewhere along the line somebody lost the understanding of being compassionate towards others and helping others somewhere along the line. Because remember, we grew up with it. Mum and dad grew vegetables, so they give them away. They even had a cow, for goodness sake, when they came into town, and any excess milk they gave away. Everybody helped one another. And I think what Ash is doing is bringing back that community spirit. We're here to help others. If you don't have a heart for it, maybe it's not the right place for you to be. But if you have a heart for humanity and you want to bring hope back to humanity, then ONPASSIVE is definitely the platform. Remember, it's just a platform of where you can come and have everything. So you have all these amazing products and tools. However, it's all in one spot, and it's all available to you to be able to be an affiliate, to be able to make an income, so that you can help your family, your community, all of those things that you have in your heart, your desires, because we each have different desires. But mine is to help as many as I can for the time that I have left on this earth, and hopefully, Lord, that's a little bit longer yet.
Absolutely. Um, Come down to the last point. I wanted to know, what are your dreams for you to actually, that you're looking forward to fulfilled? I know you've talked about your passion, but what are your dreams, your personal dreams, that you're looking forward to literally make it, turn it into reality with ONPASSIVE aside?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And that is a difficult one, okay? Because over my life, there's so much happened. I've done already so much. I think for me personally, I would just like to go on a little
Hmm.
holiday without having to think, how much is that going to cost me, or how are we going to get there? All of that sort of stuff, I think, for me personally, and that's a big thing for me to say, because for me personally, I don't really need anything, okay? Um, that's how I feel. I really don't. I'll go and have my a massage. I've been wanting a massage. Back in 2015, I had I had a heart attack, and then I had a triple bypass. So I've been cut, and had big surgeries to have a triple bypass to my heart. Last year I had a heart attack. I think it's staying away from stress, and those people who stress you out, as hard as what that is sometimes. But I think, things like massages, just beautiful, relaxing body, loving of the body, the mind, and just because it makes you stronger in then being able to help others,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. Look after yourself
Yeah, for
first,
sure,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, as we know, and as we get to understand how OnPassive works, we do have the products, we have the customer, there's a transaction, there's times we can harvest, right? Because all of that has been built in place for us, but there's actions need to be taken. And so when it comes to dreams, it's so amazing how we just have simple dreams. As for you, having massage, weekly, maybe month. I would love to have that too. You know, but we know that we can multiply that hundreds and millions time because of the generous of OnPassive, which our CEO, Mr. Ash Mufareh, it's including in us into his plan. And that's amazing. And some people that are in OnPassive, although he knows all of his early adapters, but there will be more people that coming into ONPASSIVE that accept or that having that generosity from the company, which he didn't even know who they are, right? And that's how
Yeah,
amazing, how
yeah,
blessed we are to be able to be here and witness this entire journey that we have gone, that we have traveling. And so myself too have that dream too, just a very simple dreams. And so anyway, we have a really good conversation, and I'm so glad that we spent some time for me to literally get to know you a little bit more, and for other people to get to know you a little bit more. So if anyone who's watching this and would like to connect with Narelle, I believe she has a website there that you actually can connect with her. Just go to narellewalcon.com, and you can see a lot of the things that she does. She has a show out there, Diamond Within. She has a book out there if you like to purchase. I believe you can connect with her there. And, looking for the future, if you're looking forward to collaborate or to do things together with Narelle, go to her website, www.narellewalcon.com. So, Narelle, I appreciate your time being here. Any last things you want to share with us before we end this session?
yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Julie, and thank you again for allowing me to come on and share my story. I know parts of my life are so big. Never be afraid to share who you are. Never be afraid to be who you are. Always remember you have a diamond within. You have a heart, and there are many people out there just waiting to hear your story. Remember that. Depending on how you believe, but I believe in God. God is love. All you need in this life really is to reach out and love another, and they will intentionally love you back. So just remember, you are amazing just the way you are. You are worthy, and you are enough. Thank you so much, Julie. I really have appreciated sharing my story, and I hope that it reaches the people that
Absolutely,
it needs
Narelle.
to.
It's good to see you and good to spend this hours with you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And if you know you have a story that worth sharing, we are here, and we'll sit down and listen to your story. And so, reached out to myself or even connect with Narelle. She does have a show herself as well. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thanks,
Okay.
Narelle.
Thank you,
Enjoy
Julie.
your day.